Hi, my name is Billy D'Addario and I write romance novels. And today I'm going to talk about the most famous romance writer in all of history, and that is Jane Austen and her novel Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice is about Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy. Um, Elizabeth Bennet has four sisters, and in the time that this novel was written, um, there were some conventions that had to be followed. First of all, you couldn't marry beneath your class. You couldn't, fortune was a very important thing. Having money was important because you had to support yourself somehow. It was more important than it is today, even because today, you poor people and people without money marry all the time. But back then, um, you didn't want to marry below your station. So you tried to find somebody who was either, everyone was trying to marry above. So when you were looking for a mate, you tried to marry somebody who was at your financial, that matched your financial situation, or matched your social rank. So if you had a title, and no money, you could still marry somebody who had money. So because you had a title, it was a very convoluted setup. So this novel, the novel sets up a situation where Elizabeth Bennet wants to marry for love, not for convention. And she meets this gentleman, Fitzwilliam is not a name, Fitzwilliam Darcy. And he is kind of a different gentleman. He tries to be conventional, but he falls head over heels in love with Elizabeth and can't believe that that the situation is what it is, and even so, he convinces his best friend that that he shouldn't marry beneath his station, and his best friend Charles not to marry Jane, who is Elizabeth's sister. He does correct that situation later in the novel, but at first it's a very it's a problem for Elizabeth that he did this, that he told his friend not to marry her sister Jane. And then there is Wickham, who is just a scoundrel from the beginning. First of all, he gets this woman pregnant and leaves her. He's one of these gentlemen who just is a serial person who goes around convincing women that they ought to be in love with him, that he's going to marry them, and then he has sex with them and then leaves them high and dry without any sense of, without any recourse, essentially. So they are tainted and they have no recourse, because no one's going to marry a woman who's had sex out of wedlock. No one's going to marry a woman who has a child. No one is going to marry a woman who is so foolish as to do something like that. Your virginity is something that you treasured and you took seriously to give to your husband after you were married, and then only. But Wickham convinces women in a serial manner to give up their virginity. And Elizabeth's youngest sister just runs away with Wickham and is going to get married. And in the end, Darcy is the one who finds them. He hunts them down, finds them, convinces Wickham that he must marry Elizabeth's baby sister, and he pays for him to get an officership in the army and $400 a year in payment to marry Elizabeth's sister. And when Elizabeth finds this out, her heart is melted, and it totally changes the way she feels about Darcy. And isn't that a strange, I mean, isn't it, to me, I found it strange that, first of all, that you would pay someone to marry your daughter or your daughter, essentially. This was a standard thing that happened, that you would expect to be paid to marry someone. To me, I was just flabbergasted to find that out. In this novel, anyway, there are themes of love, there are themes of class and gender and fairness, what else? And convention over love. I really enjoyed this novel. It is one of the classic reads that every romance writer must read, enjoy, and just, Jane Austen is to romance writers what Shakespeare is to a playwright. She is the queen of all romance writers. So we take her work seriously. We learn from it. We follow her formulas, and she can teach us a lot. So for me, this was an exercise it was an educational exercise to read this, as well as a pleasure. And I hope you'll take the time to give this book a thorough read, because I know you'll enjoy it too. Thanks, and have a great day. Keep writing.